Hello to Quarry Hill Primary School people. Here's our weekly check-in with Ferdi. This week we're looking at how to ask for permission to interact with Ferdi, and we talk about his freedom of choice and how we can't just assume that we can pat him all the time.
Sit there, Ferdi. Sit there. Good. Alright, hello to Quarry Hill Primary School people. We're here with Ferdi again for our weekly check-in. This week we've got one main thing to talk about, and it's really not about something that Ferdi's learning. This week I'd like to talk about something that the people at the Quarry Hill Primary School need to learn about. We're coming into a time where Ferdi will be interacting with people more, so he's done his learning to relax in lots of different places. He's still got a little bit of that to do, and when he begins school life as usual again, he'll be learning to relax on yard duty, out at the pick up and drop off, and in lots of different places. But he's learnt to relax in lots of classrooms. What we really need to talk about is how to ask Ferdi if it's okay to come into his space. The second part of this is how to ask Ferdi if it's okay to pat him and interact with him. Okay, let's imagine that he's sitting in a classroom right now like this. He's got what he needs. He's got water, bed, toys. Same three things every time. Water, bed, toys. Now, if this was a classroom, Ferdi was just here on his own, he looks like he's in a really nice state to interact with. So to come up and be in his space. And there's a couple of ways that we do it. Asking for permission, it's called. I use my body language and I watch Ferdi's body language for his response. Now, to do this, I'm just going to come into his space and I'm going to make sure that I don't come up behind him. I never startle him. If he's asleep, I'm not going to wake him up suddenly ever. Okay, so we've got Ferdi in the classroom. While I talk, he'll be able to relax and sit down here, and I'll demonstrate exactly how I would come into his space. Okay, so now he's doing something, whether he's playing with his toy or he's just laying down, I want him to know that I'm coming into his space. I'm going to come into his space that is what we would normally call his bubble or his hoop. At the moment, I'm not in his space. So as I come in, I use his name. I don't move in really slowly because that will make him think there's a game or something strange going on. I just come in at my normal pace and I use his name. I wait for him to respond and then I watch what his response is. He'll do one of two things. He'll show me with his body that he's okay with me coming into his space, or he'll show me that he doesn't really want it to happen. The way that he'll show me if he doesn't want it to happen is he'll look away and his body language will show me that he's moving away a little bit. Or he might get up and move away. And we're calling this his freedom of choice. Ferdi must always have the choice to let us know whether he'd like the interaction to happen or not. Let's just see how it goes. This is what it looks like. I just come into his space and say, Ferdi, hello Ferdi. Tail wags. Head looks up at me, he looks pretty interested in me, and I'm coming down to a level where we can interact, but I'm making sure that my head is much higher than Ferdi's, and that's for safety. If Ferdi stands up right now, we'd be almost at eye height, so if Ferdi stands up, I'll stand up. But he's playing with something, he doesn't need me to pat him. If I go to pat him now, and I pat him near the face, he will be very likely to mouth my hand, to feel my hand, to lick my hand. Certainly won't be a bite, but it's not a good time for me to pat him around the face. And I can show you that if I do pat him around the face, it's not dangerous, but it's probably not a good idea if he's feeling like he wants to chew on something. So we give him the toy. Now, sitting here with Ferdi would be enough for me. If I wanted to sit next to Ferdi and do some work, this would be a great opportunity for me to connect with him. I don't have to have my hands on him. The thing that we need to remember about Ferdi is we don't always have to have our hands on him. Now, I've just moved out of Ferdi's space. I'm coming back in and you can see the tail and I just say, hello Ferdi, and I don't have to touch him. He realises if I'm not interacting with him, he's got toys, he's got other things he can do, but he's let me know he hasn't moved away. So I've asked for permission, he said yes. He's actually touching me now, he's sort of leaning over, he's showing me that he would like to interact. So if I give him a pat, and if he wants to mouth me, I pat him on the body to avoid it. And if he really wants to chew on something, he gets the toy every time. If Ferdi gets up now and gets really playful and starts to move around and I feel that I need to move away, then I just move away and let him have his playful time on his own. Ferdi doesn't need people to touch him all the time. And it's not fair for us to expect that just because Ferdi's walking past that we're allowed to pat him and that we should always all be allowed to go over and put our hands on him. Now he's just sat down right next to me and he's sitting on my leg. That tells me he's enjoying the connection, and that's all it needs to be. So if I was in this class, if I was a student or a teacher working next to him, this is enough. If one or two more people wanted to come down and sit around here, it's really important that we don't surround him, because he needs the freedom of choice. He needs to be able to stand up and move away, or to show us that he needs a bit more space. So we're talking about interacting with Ferdi and asking him, is it okay? So thinking about how we bring our bodies into his space and watching him for a response. It's pretty easy to get better at. We're talking about his freedom of choice and not surrounding him. And a couple of things like we don't wake him up suddenly, and we don't come up behind him if we want to sit with him and startle him by touching him when he's not aware of us. And you can just see then, when I touch him, he sort of stopped and went, what was that? But now he can hear me talking and he knows it's me. Okay, sometimes I think that I would like to touch the dogs way more than they really want it or need it. So just sitting here is enough for us to hang out together. So let's keep that in mind. There's one other thing I'd really like to mention. Quite often people talk really loud to dogs and they've got really good hearing. So let's just have a look at how well Ferdi can hear me. Ferdi. Ferdi. He heard that. Okay, so I whispered, Ferdi. And he heard it. Now, he's chewing on his lead at the moment. It's not something that we want him to do all the time. So I would give him another option for something to play with, and I'd get him interested in that. I think he likes the lead because he knows he shouldn't have it, to be honest. And it's a little bit crunchy, so I'm going to take it off him in a minute. But just remember, we don't need to talk loud to him. If you see him in the yard, he'll hear his name in lots of different places and get confused really easily. If you see him around, you don't have to say, oh, Ferdi, hello, Ferdi, oh, Ferdi, because it's just too loud. He doesn't need it. Ferdi, hello, Ferdi, that's all it needs to be. Okay, let's have a play, Ferdi. Let's get that lead off you and have a little play with some of your other toys, hey? All right, so I'll unclip that from there, pull it around, and I know he likes this one. So simple, swap that for this and see if we can get him to have a bit of a play with this. You can see he likes the idea of grabbing this and having a bit of a play with it. He started to really enjoy a little bit of a tug game. All right. Come on, Ferdi. Does he growl when he plays this ever? No. Is there a ball in here that he likes, Anne? He likes this thing, doesn't he?
Thanks for watching, guys. Here's the 3 main points again for this week. We talk about asking for permission, freedom of choice, and how to read that response. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Well done, Ferdi. Keep up the great work. Thank you.